Let's go on to the next French assault. This time it would be the French Leger being led by the general. Piedmontese Grenadiers have already passed a morale check to hold their position for this shock phase, so they do not take another roll here. It's only done once. So they're going to fire, but this time it's going to be down a third because this is successive fire, which means in the same phase, if you fire again and again and again, every time after the first fire you go down a third effectiveness. So it's going to be 96 down a third, which works out to be roughly, 64 percentile. Rolled an 80 something, 89, so they missed on this time on the volley. Now I got to figure the differential. Well, we already know the Grenadiers, they're at 13, and the Leger are going to be a natural 7. They've lost no figure, so they're still at 7, and the officer is going to add 1 to an 8. So this is an 8 to a 13, or a -5 assault. At 200%, because it's 8 figures to 4. And they roll a 5. 200%. -5 of the 5 is a DR result on the defender. So the French got in. Now I have to retire the Piedmontese, and they're going to come over to the blue zone because they're not allowed to go up to the red zone if you read the scenario notes. We'll throw them over here and just put them in disorder here, because remember the disorder retire is the result. It's a DR, so that's a disorder retire. And since officers are involved, I'm going to have to now roll to see if there was an officer effect. Looking at the chart, 200%, the attacker's got a base 10% chance and no adjustments, so there's a 10% chance for the French officer to be captured or wounded. 25, no effect. And Del Carretto, his base is 15% and a DR results another 5, so it's effectively a 20% chance. He wasn't captured or wounded either. As you can see, I've moved the French Demi Brigade des Légers into the yellow zone. They now control it, and the French general is with them. For the scenario notes, if the French control the yellow and the blue zone at the end of any assault segment, they automatically win the scenario by taking of the castle. Same thing applies if for some reason they get a unit specifically into the red zone, but that's near impossible because the only way to get in there is via the blue zone. That being said, I've now got to resolve the assaults down here. It should be noted that the Sardinian Grenadiers, which retired from the yellow zone at this point in time, are sort of in a transitory state. They will not be counted towards the active defense of the blue zone while they are trying to rally up or under assault in this particular shock phase. Once this shock phase is over, then they will count. And as for a quick note on the capacity, each of these zones can hold up to a maximum of 8 figures. Anything beyond that requires the units trying to get in to take a morale check to see if they outright surrender. To make it a little clearer, I've repositioned the Piedmontese Grenadiers to reflect that this is the battalion that retired from the yellow zone. This is the one that was originally in the blue zone and conducting the defense of the blue zone. Okay, now we're going to do the assault of this French battalion against these Grenadiers. The Grenadiers have a 12 factor. If you did the calculations, it's 8 plus 3 for the wall plus 1 for being an elite. And the French are a natural 6 coming in. But first we have to go through the fire segment. And also we have to check and see if the Piedmontese Grenadiers are going to hold in position. And they should, because they're an 8 and they get 2 for the wall, but they're going to come back by 1 for the odds, but the general Del Carretto is still alive and within 9 inches, so consequently it's going to make it an even 10. So as long as they don't roll a 1 or a 0, we should be okay. But they rolled a 0. Not good. So what happens here is the Piedmontese Grenadiers are artificially down 1 morale for this phase. So if I did the calculations again, it's 8, down 1 for the special die roll, makes them a 7, plus 2 for the wall, makes them a 9, and the general makes them a 10. So they still held in good order, but only just. But they are down 1 here on out for the shock combat phase, which might make a difference. Okay, we've determined that the Piedmontese Grenadiers are holding, but just barely, but they're going to be down 1 for the shock differential. So now they have to fire. And it's a good practice to leave sometimes the 0 or the 1 die rolled next to the unit during the shock phase. But in this case, I've only got the 2 dice with me. Alright, so I'm going to fire. It's 48 doubled. And they rolled a 92. Just got one. Remember, it's 96. Morale check. They start with a 5. Officers within 9 inches. So that means they're going to get back to a 6. And they roll a 2. So they pass the morale. Now we got to do the differential. Well, the French are going to start with a 6, lost to figure is a 5, so they're a straight 5. The Grenadiers are an 8 plus 3 for the wall, which makes them an 11. No leadership bonus because the general is not direct, or the colonel is not directly attached to the unit, so we're still an 11. But we're down 1 because remember we rolled the -1 on the shock table. Rolled for the -1 on the shock effect, which is going to take us back down to a 10. So it's a 10 to 5, and it's 7 to 4, so it's 150% -5 assault. And they rolled a 6. And a 6 result translates to a DR1 disordered retire 1 for the attacker, and a disorder lose a figure for the defending force. So that means the French lost a figure, they disordered in place, and they were forced to retire. But it's not a rout. The Piedmontese lost a figure, that was the D1, and they disordered in place. The Piedmontese have already made the receiving roll check for this shock phase, so there's no more rolls there. So now it's up to the French. But the Piedmontese do get to fire, but now they're morale disordered, so they fire on a different table line. And looking quickly on the small arms chart, we go up to the max range or the disordered line. They've got 3 figures. Comes down to a mass target as 10%, which is doubled. So it's a basic 20%. As you can see, there's a big drop off here. Just missed it. They rolled a 24. So no effect coming in. So now I just got to go straight to the differential. Well, the Piedmontese Grenadiers started with an 8. They've lost a figure as a 7. They're morale disordered now, so that's an additional -2, which takes them down to a 5. But they're going to get 3 back for the wall, which makes them a summary of an 8. The French started with a 6. They've lost a figure, which makes them a 5, and they're morale disordered also, which will make them a 3. So it's a 3 to an 8, so it's a -5 assault on the 7 to 3. That's a 200% chart. So -5, 200%. And they roll a 4. Disorder retire for the attacker. So I'll now retire the French. Before I actually retire, remember, they were in morale disorder. So another disorder result compounds to now becomes a rout. And they're going to be within 2 inches of this zone, which occupies the French Leger battalion. So they're going to have to take a rout check for the French routing within 2 inches of them. When it comes to the zone, you measure from the perimeter of the zone for the 2-inch effect. So we'll quickly rout these guys away. They're going to run past the artillery battery at the base of the hill too, so that's going to take a pass-by check, but it won't be adjusted for the -2. So quickly checking for the artillery. They rolled a 7. They are a base 7. They passed. French Leger, they're a 7. And they occupy the terrain feature now, so they're going to get a +2 for that, which is going to make them a 9, and the general makes them a 10, but -2 for the route within 2 inches, so that makes them a natural 8. And they roll a 3, so they pass morale. They hung in there. Hey, you fought your way into that castle, you're not going to give it up lightly. After the shock phase, as you can see, the French are occupying one zone, and the Piedmontese have got the other 2 zones. So after the shock phase comes the mutual artillery fire phase, and this is where the little 4-pound battery can now fire. It's going to fire a round shot. It's really low percentile because it's a 1/10 target, so it's roughly about 5%. 49, they missed. Like I said, it's more of a harassment type fire for this game. Now there's some musketry up in the castle. The Freikorps up in the upper bailey here is going to fire down into the lower bailey. So they got 4 figures, but we consider this all to be disordered fire when you're firing within the castle walls. But they rolled an odd 8. That's going to do it. They killed a French Legerman. Small arms, disordered, 4 figures. As you can see, the base is 19. The French are exposed when they're inside the castle, so they don't get the benefit of firepower defense from this wall of the castle because the Freikorps are actually manning it. Sort of in the courtyard type effect here.